Hello, everyone. You're listening to For Those We Lost. I'm your host, Jennifer Sullivan. Thank you for being here. I recorded this episode with Brian in April 2022, and it was originally supposed to be episode 28. But Brian didn't send me any photos of his mom or him, and I decided to put the show on hold until I got those photos from him. With this podcast headed into a hiatus, I decided to air this show, and I went through Brian's YouTube channel and pulled some still images from his videos. I just didn't want this show to sit on my computer and never be heard. I am also hoping that he sends me photos in the next few days. Now, about the hiatus. My work has picked up a lot, and I found I have less time to work on podcast episodes and everything that goes into producing them. For that reason, I have decided to end Season 2 sometime in June, and I'm not currently recording any stories. I am collecting emails, but if my work stays this busy, I don't know if there will be a Season 3. For right now, I'll say that I'd like to do a limited Season 3 later in the fall. I appreciate everyone who has been a part of this show, who's followed the podcast online and social media, and who's listened to the episodes. It means so much to me, and it's been a huge part of my own personal grief and healing journey. All right, let's get started with this show.
There was the last normal day, the last day that things were the way they were before they weren't anymore.
We kind of all rushed out of the house and said a quick goodbye. And, little did I know that would be the last time I hugged my mom.
He yells and tells me he's getting ready to go. He said, "I'm okay. Just stay here. I'll be home in a few hours." We tell him bye and he leaves. That was the last time we ever saw him.
It's like the minute that helicopter hit the air, it just hit me what I was watching, because I knew he wasn't coming home, and he knew he wasn't coming home.
For me, I took it more personally because I'm a nurse practitioner, and why can't I save him? I can help all these other people, and why can't I save him?
Telling us that it was time, we needed to make a decision, we need to go ahead and just take him off the ventilator. And I was like, how do we know?
One thing I like to tell people is that if you lose somebody to COVID, your need to talk about the person you lost will outlast other people's desire to hear about it.
We make sure that our family members and loved ones' memories lived on. That's really important to me, is that people don't forget. I don't want to forget any of it.
So talk about them. Talk about them till people are sick of hearing about them. Because as long as you're still talking about them, they're never far away.
And the last thing that my mom said is, she said, when you get to heaven, we will look for each other.
Thanks for being here with me. I've got a really great show coming up for you. Today, I'll be talking to Brian in Illinois. Brian lost his mom in June of 2021 to complications from COVID. She'd had a number of serious medical emergencies in the last 10 years, and when she got COVID in February of 2021, though she recovered and came home in April, the overall damage was done, and she just didn't get better. Brian has autism and PTSD, and he and his mother lived together for many, many years. They were literally each other's support system. When they got COVID, they both got incredibly ill very quickly, and they could not help each other. Brian and his mom were alone for 3 days before he called 911. Brian also has long COVID, and we spend part of this interview talking about his symptoms and his long-term health challenges. For context, we recorded this episode on April 23rd, 2022. I have a list of questions I asked people on the show, and Brian asked to see those. Because of his autism, he wrote out the answers to every single question, and then he rewrote them again. There are times in this show where you can hear him flipping the pages, and we also had some audio feedback during the recording. I've done my best to edit the audio issues in the show. Brian mentions the People's Resource Center and his YouTube channel. Those links are in the show notes below. And with that, I'd like to welcome Brian to the show. Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm Brian.
Hi, thanks for being here today. We are talking today about your mom, Teresa Burke.
That's correct.
And she passed away in June of 2021.
Yes.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to start with you talking about you and your mom and when you got COVID, because I know you both got COVID at the same time and you went through a lot together. And so I would like you to just start there and talk about that.
Okay. Well, technically, what happened was I got it first in February 2021. I'm not sure, or I'd say early February. I'm not sure exactly when. And I thought it was just a cold or something because we were very careful. Very careful. And then I started getting various things. We actually thought it wasn't COVID. I was coughing intensely. That was like the first thing. So, and it turned out I had pneumonia too, on top of COVID. And then I started getting sicker and sicker. Days went by without knowing like much was going on. And then I found that I was so sick, it was better to just lay by the bathroom. So I just started like putting a pillow there because it was so hard to get from my room to the bathroom and put like a blanket there. And it was that bad. And also the intense coughing, too, but other problems. And then I started seeing mom. Occasionally she'd come by to help me with something, try and give me medicine. And then she started getting sicker and I saw her like falling over, but I was in and out of consciousness. And then next thing I knew, one day she came into the bathroom and she fell on the floor in the bathroom. And I was like right outside of it. And I don't know how many days we were like that. It's still a blur. Possibly 3 days. We're not totally, I don't want to say that for sure, but it'd be in and out. We were calling people or people would call us. And I do remember a moment where they'd say something like, I'd say, well, I have we're supposed to be trying to see our doctor. And we were trying to get out to get to her. But somebody made some comment, some relative or somebody, and they said, it's Wednesday. And it was Monday that I was convinced. I was like, you mean it's been 2 days? And I couldn't believe that. And then went on a few more days. And so I can't tell you exactly what was going on there. We were so bad. The lawyer said we were lucky we were alive. I eventually called my caseworkers because I'm disabled and I have caseworkers with that before COVID. And then I called 911. They said to call 911 and I did. And then they came and they got us. I actually had to open the door because they were going to break the door down. Somehow I made it to the door. I'm still proud of that because I could barely stand. But I made my way to the door and opened it to let them in. And they just took us out. Mom was laying on the floor for days. I was trying to help her, but I was so out of it, I could barely stand. I'd get up and walk a little bit, and then I'd fall. And then I'd get up and walk, and I'd fall. And same thing, she couldn't even get up at all. They took us to the hospital. So the shorter version is we were in the hospital a little bit, a few days, or I was. Then they thought it was better that I went home. I was still very sick, but they said I'd be safer at home. We'd also left everything on, Luckily, somebody locked the door, so they didn't leave the door wide open, one of the paramedics. And I got home and then just started trying to, because things were quite a mess. We'd been falling into things and everything like that, and trying to do what I could. But mostly for the next 2 weeks, I could barely move. It wasn't until like mid-March that I couldn't even go take the garbage out. I had some people helping me then. But then she was transferred around to a few different hospitals, and there was a lot of incidents, and that gets into some of your other questions here about medical misbehavior and things like that. But that's like another subject. But I think some of these people didn't treat her well, and then she eventually came home in April. She was doing better, and she still had a lot of problems. Technically, we didn't have COVID anymore, but she started getting sicker and sicker, and but then a little better, then sicker. Yeah, and she had an infection on her leg, and we were about to go see her doctor and do something about it. It was on her foot, and I said, "You gotta do something about that." And I believe that was partially caused by negligence. But the COVID, they did tell us, made a factor in that. Well, then she, one day I came into her room and she was having a seizure. And I didn't know much about treating that. I'm trying to help her, and I called 911, and then they took her to the hospital. And then I just came to the hospital a few times to see her there, and then they transferred her to a hospice sometime in May, and then she passed away in June. And I couldn't really see her at the hospice, so it was all done through phone calls or video call, which that's a whole other screw up they did.
How so?
They messed up a lot of stuff. It's such a long story. They scheduled at the wrong times. The person who was supposed to be there wasn't there. Then I had to call another day, then another day. I did what I was supposed to do. It was them. And then one point they put her on the phone, on the video phone, and she was yelling in pain. And I have to sit there watching that. I thought someone would be in the room with her. They just left it. And I kept calling and calling, saying, "Get someone in the room, help her." And they should see she's fine. That was a pretty awful moment. I'm pretty upset about that. I dropped off a lot of things for her there because I couldn't see her, but I said, set this up for her. It had songs on it, a portable DVD player, a radio. They did eventually turn her radio on after lots of delays, and it turned it to her favorite radio station. But the other stuff I came to find out after she passed away was never unpacked. Books, photos, all sorts of things. I said, "Could you put this up?" I knew she couldn't because she was really in bad shape then. Well, even by the time she was in the hospital, she was bedridden. But she could still talk to me. She could still hug me then, but she got worse and worse. I mean, we knew once she went to the hospice, she wasn't going to make it. Yeah. So we just accepted that, the family. There's much more to it, but that's the short version of it. I myself have been in very bad shape. It was getting better for a while, and then my health got a lot worse. So I should say, technically, they're listing her as not dying of COVID because the infection's what got her, but the infection was made worse by the COVID.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that part. And I'm glad that you emailed and that you want to tell her story, because I feel like people, like in your mom's case, she got COVID and she was already frail with her health. And then she got COVID and it just made her a lot worse. But then you had this, I feel like you had this joy of having her come home and feel like, okay, she's going to be okay.
Oh yeah.
And then that was just sort of taken away from you as she got worse and worse with these complications from her having COVID.
Yeah. Just the day before the seizure, she was planning a new art project and sending some things out. So she was in really good spirits. That was one day before the seizure. She had me go to the store and buy her some more supplies. And I was able to do that then, but it was such a shock. I knew the infection was bad, but I didn't know how bad.
Yeah, so your mom was an artist.
Well, she was an accountant, as that was her job.
Okay.
She was not really an artist for a long time. She did some painting when she was younger because she had some around, but not that many.
Hmm.
And then she worked as an accountant. She worked some other jobs, but that was her main job for decades. And then around 2011, 2012 or so, we moved to this new place here together, and I would help her. She had health problems, and I was living with her. I have disability as well, having PTSD and autism. And there were certain programs here. And one of them was they had like a food pantry. They had other things in our town in Westmont, and they had art classes. Excuse me. And she started taking some there and eventually got me into it. I've taken classes before, but I just was busy with something else. And I said, okay, I'll come to the class with you. But she was doing it before me. And a couple of teachers there, especially this one lady named Leslie, who was really nice, she taught mom in some way and it just took off. So after that, mom started doing large amounts of paintings. There's probably like 100 paintings here. I'm not sure about that, but I think so. And then she gave a bunch away to people. She sold some to people. She had some art shows over the years. Didn't make too much money. I don't know if you'd say she worked as a painter, but she certainly was showing a lot of them, and she enjoyed it very much. She said it changed her life. It brought her such a new purpose that she would talk to me about. She was just sitting around not doing too much. She would read, watch things, but she felt kind of empty and sad. And as her health was getting more problems, she wasn't doing as much work. This was something to re-energize her. And she even left notes behind here thanking the people at this class, their program. It's a thing called the People's Resource Center. They for doing this for her, like it changed her life, she said. So I think that was good at the end, that she got so much into this and her paintings to try and preserve that. And that's part of her memorial. Part of the things she asked me to do for her is make sure that her art was online. I'm working on it. I'm doing what I can, but it's hard because that was like her last wishes. And she talked about it years ahead of time if something happened to her. We went over stuff like this. It certainly, it's incredible the amount of artwork she did. It's unfortunate that we haven't had too much luck selling more of them, but there were some that were never to be sold, but there were others that she tried and tried but couldn't. But I think it was the act of doing it. Even if they didn't sell, it made her so happy, she said.
Yeah. I think art in general, when you find something like that that inspires you, that you do, whether you make money off of it or not, and it feeds your soul, and it sounds like that's what this did for your mom.
Mm-hmm. That could be said, yeah.
So your mom talked about her wishes after she passed away, and were you able to have a funeral or a memorial service for her after she passed?
No, no, we did not. She gave instructions about that too. We talked about that for years because she hated doing that for other people. Not that she didn't like them, she just hated the process. She absolutely hated it, but she would do it because they asked it. But she said, promise me, Brian, do not let this happen. She talked to her other sisters and brothers and that about it. Her instructions were kind of, to give you a short version, no funeral, no wake, nothing like that, but a memorial with certain factors to it, but wait a long time. She didn't say exactly how long. She said at least a few months. So I said, it doesn't matter. She said, just give it a few months. Don't do it right away or anything. I don't want to do that to people. She felt it was cruel. And so I said, sure, yeah, I'll promise that. And then we would go back and forth with ideas. And I'd say, how would you like this done or this? We had a few scares with her, and I've had scares too. I've been and we had a few close calls. And so it was a subject that came up a lot about after if something happened to me or something happened to her. So, she had almost died in 2013. She went into coma, but she got out of it. So it was like she had so many close calls. It was just a thing. She said, remember, I made it this time, but next time I might not, and it's like, yeah, so it's a lot of stuff involved in it. In the memorial, we had a little luncheon thing for a family get together in August. Some people mistakenly listed that as a memorial. There's a bit of a disagreement because you might even see that online, calling that was not the memorial. It just wasn't. There was so much that went wrong with that. It was just really a get together at a restaurant to celebrate her.
Yeah.
The memorial, she was very specific about certain things. And then other things she left up to me, like I'm making an ofrenda for her. She said, until we talk about that, and she'd say, okay, yeah, oh, that would be nice, or do that. She wasn't as passionate about that part. But she was like, if that makes you happy, then please go do it. So that kind of thing. So it was partially for me, partially for her. Working on right now, where we have a space in town here that may or may not be open now, that hopefully will be doing something within a few months. It's been delayed because they were closed because of COVID. Even though people say it's fine, which is a whole other subject.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Is it's not fine. They may even be closing down again. I've heard that it goes back and forth, but they're agreeing to do it for free, and they're also connected through that People's Resource Center, who do really good work. And then I have to pay for other parts, but it's basically like an art show with a video show and all sorts of stuff. It's a long story.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. And that is fitting to more of what she requested.
Mhm. Do you live near Chicago?
Pretty far, but there's a train I can take that goes directly there.
Okay.
It's yeah, it's not. It's certainly at least an hour's drive, I think, or so, something like. I haven't been to Chicago in years, but
Yeah, I haven't been there in years either. I loved it when I was there, but I haven't been there in a long time. I'm not from there and I haven't traveled there but the one time, so I don't really have a sense of where cities are in relation to Chicago. I just know that when I was there, I was flabbergasted at how big it seemed to me. It's
yeah,
just such a big city.
yeah. It's. I'm not really. I spent some time there. I worked there for a bit at an internship thing at Amnesty International years ago. Tried to had some museum job that I had to leave, unfortunately, because of travel restrictions.
Yeah,
But it's been a while, so I wouldn't know too much right now.
yeah. Yeah, so you went through COVID with your mom, and then she came home and you recovered from the COVID infection initially, and then you started to develop long COVID. And were you going through the beginning part of your long COVID when your mom had her seizure and went back into the hospital?
I was always having the long COVID since I had COVID, but it seemed to go in waves. Like when I first came home, I was so sick I could barely do anything. And they just basically, I just was bedridden, and I had some friends and family and that who aren't around anymore, but they helped bring me stuff, or they take the garbage out. I couldn't even take the garbage out. It was piling up because the place was a mess. Um, the pain I was in was so bad. I was so sick. I mostly just laid on the couch or in bed. Then eventually made my way outside, was able to do the laundry again, but I noticed problems. Everything was my vision's been affected, which a lot of people with COVID I talk to have that. It's like you're wearing sunglasses. You need to have everything brighter. Can't read as well as I used to, both because of the everything looks darker, but also my eyes move a lot. Like I can't stay focused on the page. Um, Various other pains and stuff. I have one thing that might actually be from the medication they gave me. They pumped me with a lot of steroids in the hospital, and I have this kind of bump, puffy thing on my left side now, which hurts a lot. But some days it's better than others. Like right now, it's not too bad, but last night it was bad. It's just like I'm going for treatment for that. It's taking a long time. It's a lot of forms, and then you go to one facility, then they go, oh no, we can't cover you. Then you have to go to another one. It's like you just get the right one right the first time. They're going to help me with physical therapy to kind of stretch that. I think the puffiness and this pain is from the large amount of. I was on an IV and they were putting a lot of stuff in me. So other drugs as well, but I know steroids was one of the main things, which I think helped, but I think also it left a side effect.
Yeah.
But the long COVID, yeah, it fluctuates. My breathing is very bad. I can't move as fast as I used to. So if I push myself, I start to get really, really sick. I can't shop like I used to. I can't do the laundry like I used to. It will take me, used to go to, depending on how much I would buy at the store, but I usually get a lot, so I don't have to go as much. So that would take me like an hour. Now it's more like 2 hours to unpack because I'll unpack and then I'll just collapse. So it depends how much I stress myself to kind of answer. Sorry, it's a long answer.
Oh, it's fine.
It's like how bad are other factors? Is it also I have a problem with the heat, which I've had for 20 years. And I can't breathe the hot air as well. I didn't always have this. It started in like my late teens. Summer's starting, so that's going to be rough. It's already hot here where I am now. It shouldn't even be this hot in April, but it is.
Oh, well, I don't mean to, well, it is cold here. We're supposed to
Yeah.
be in spring here in Oregon, and we're still having January type weather. So maybe we could switch a little because I
Yeah.
like warm weather, and it
Yeah.
sounds like you like cold weather. It is cold here still.
Yeah, it's just for me it's not that I didn't once like it. That would certainly. I've actually talked to my caseworkers about that, about trying to move to a much more colder climate.
Hmm.
And there's some better services too for disabled people, because now with COVID, it's made it even worse. I find myself gasping even more. But I still will go out in the summer. I liked going out and going swimming and doing some things, but I have to limit it. Being in the water helps cool me down.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been bad. Where even right here where I live, I try to exercise. I try to walk around going, and I'll start gasping from the heat. And yeah, it's the COVID has affected that. It's made what was already bad much worse.
Yeah.
The damage, the trouble with the seeing, trouble moving. I'm certainly some days I can barely get out of bed. And luckily, the people at the job I'm at have been really accommodating. They help me. I'm sitting down a lot, so I don't have to stand. So that's good. If my legs hurt, it's that I walk with a cane, and I had a cane before COVID, but I really need it now. That the cane was because I get this kind of arthritis pain a little bit, which was, but the more it's in my side than just my legs, so it's the bending over.
Hmm.
That's what's really hard. So yeah, COVID's made everything slower and worse. Long story short.
Yeah. Wow. You are I've had guests on the show who either have family members with long COVID and one who had long COVID, but she didn't talk about it too terribly much. You are the first person with so much long haul. You have long haul and you are navigating that complex medical system with your side effects and with all of these things. And and then also you lost your mom.
Yeah, yeah, it's all piles up.
Yeah.
The and having disability to begin with, because I can do certain things. I don't. I have to be seeing doctors. I have to be in various setbacks because of the autism and the PTSD. It affects a lot of things. It's very rough, and that's been aggravated too. I don't think it really affects autism. It just stays the way it is. But the trauma of us laying there and me seeing mom, and especially now because my birthday's coming up, and it's been a year since she was sent back. It was like late April, so I don't remember the exact day she had the seizure. Sorry, and so that's a year ago, give or take. And then I celebrated my birthday with her in the hospital. So this will be my first birthday without her. Christmas was pretty bad, but
Yeah.
birthdays were. I don't. I think another factor is the isolation, and when you have people around you and you have stuff to do, that helps, and people that care. And unfortunately, a bunch of people have disappeared. I mean, some people have said they can't do any more to help. Some people are living in other states, like my father lives in another state. My parents were divorced long ago. And the people are sending some help. But what really hurts is the people who lived right here. Some of them have disappeared. There is a very good friend of mine who has completely vanished. That the loss of that person has been really devastating because it was helping. She was there for the first few months. I think I haven't heard from her since October or November. And the first few months, it's good to have that. That's very important, to have family around, to have people to talk to. The Zoom groups have helped me a bit because the pain and the breathing and all that, but that's the COVID, but the psychological, certainly the eye damage is definite because that's been confirmed by many people.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a specific eye doctor, but my doctor says, yeah, you're clearly having that. And some days are better than others, but it's definitely a general, like, just, you can tell that, wow, it looks really dark in here, but yet all the lights are on. And it's like, I'm gonna have to get brighter light bulbs. And it's like, why am I having trouble seeing as well as I used to? Like when I look outside at nighttime, I can see across, but it's hard to do that now.
Yeah.
Like across this big complex here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're in the first year since your mom passed away and working through those days like holidays and birthdays and things that are hard. And you're coming up on 1 year since your mom passed away. And you mentioned the COVID groups, the Zoom groups. So
Mhm.
can you, what what are you doing to cope, to heal, if that's a word that you want to use, to work through all of your emotions about this?
I did ask that. Yeah, I got something written for that
Okay.
because I had to really think about it. Some days it's worse than others. There's everything from there are some things I use to help me with the grief and that I used already before COVID because the PTSD from which I technically they said have PTSD from COVID now because laying on the floor like that and the shock of that, the losing mom, all that are PTSD causing events.
Mhm. I totally believe that. I feel like I have PTSD from sitting outside my mom's window and so wanting to go in there and hug her and take care of her and not being able to do it. So I totally relate to that.
Yeah, the survivor's grief,
Mhm.
or because my mom, I keep picturing I could have done more to help her during the seizure. I didn't, I panicked. At first, I didn't even know she was having a seizure. And then I kind of went in and out. It's a long story. It went on for a while. And I keep replaying it. I could have done more. I could have done more. And when she was laying here on the floor in the bathroom, I wasn't in the best of moods. And she would be like, get me some water or something. And I'd try, but then I'd go, I can't. Where I was like, Mom, you gotta get yourself back up. You gotta, and we couldn't do that. And it just I don't want to I don't know how to say this, um but I just think people should know how bad it was. We were not going to the bathroom normally,
Mhm.
if that makes sense, just to know how bad it was.
Yeah.
So picture, I don't want to picture it, but that was on us all those days. Like we were not changed our clothes. So that's part of why it's not right, but I couldn't help her. I was like trying to. But I was just like, Mom, I can't. And then I couldn't even help myself. You're really reduced to the level of a baby. I'd have people change me at the hospital. And that's part of the thing that they said, not just the trauma, but when you're laying like that for days and days, you could die.
Yeah.
And many people, I talked to various people with COVID, they said by then they would have been in the hospital.
Yeah.
So we were still laying on the floor.
Yeah.
But when I replay those things in my head, I create some things to help. Sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. There's been just a few days ago, I had a really bad episode and it would not stop. And I kept trying and trying. So that's a big factor in what you're talking about, like dealing with the grief of it,
Yeah.
that needs to be understood. Those things replay. Doing stuff for her memorial when I can makes me feel good. I put these DVDs together that are like pre-recorded from podcasts, internet shows, sometimes movies. Sometimes it'll be family stuff like home movies or certain songs. And I will have them ready, like a mixtape. And some of them are designed to just play for the maximum length is 8 hours. So I'll just put them on so it sounds like there's people here. And it's usually comedy stuff, but sometimes songs. And I've heard some of them over and over again. It's just there to drown out the other noise. And I'll leave one on in one room or something, and then maybe leave the room but be walking around. So that helps. The COVID groups help when they're available. I play a lot of video games. I do a lot of stuff with that. Not as much as I used to with my new work schedule, but that's part of my internet show too. That's a big subject for me. I've written about it, so I like that. And it'll be something even if I've played it through 100 times, I've solved it. It's just the act of playing it to help calm down. I have a lot of trouble sleeping, and a lot of COVID people, long haulers do. I wake up gasping and stuff, and nightmares, but also just can't sleep. I usually fall asleep pretty quickly, but I don't stay asleep. And I'm trying different treatments for that. But doing stuff helps. Going to these, I go to an online art class now too, with art therapy. But unfortunately, that's limited. That's for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, then you got to go, and certain triggers can make things worse. Certain factors, like when I found out they had COVID at the office, that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And I came home and I thought, oh boy, and I'm a goner. Like, what am I going to do now? And the people that were helping me aren't around anymore. There are some people that can still help me, but it's not the same. So I think that kind of, am I answering that okay?
Yeah.
Making my artwork in general, when I do that, whether it's through the class or on my own, can help. But that's a long, long process. It takes me a long time to finish something like that. And I can't move as fast as I used to. Basic things that people, kind of take for granted. Imagine everything people might do on their own, like take a shower, do your laundry, wash your dishes, empty your groceries. That takes twice as long now.
Yeah.
It's so much harder. I'll stop and I'll have to start. I'll stop and start, stop and start. I hope that answers it. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but yeah, I'm sure there's more. I do enjoy swimming when I can. There's a pool nearby here, but I'm nervous to use it because of COVID now.
Yeah. So you liked swimming before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I loved it. I've been swimming since I was like 1 or 2 years old.
Oh.
There's pictures of me. I don't even remember it, but yeah, they took me first. My dad took me. Mom would come sometimes, but Dad, it was his thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've loved swimming. Took lessons for years. I mean, they put me in there. I couldn't even talk yet. So, and there's pictures of me very little, but yeah, that's my thing. Swimming is the thing because I can stay cool, keep my temperature down.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned you have an online channel. Is that your YouTube channel?
Yes, it's called Artsaganza.
Okay.
I don't know if you need me to spell that, or we'll just put a link to it.
Yes, I will definitely link to it in the notes for people to go look at your YouTube channel. So that also helps you as you move through this whole life that's different now because of COVID.
Yeah, I had the channel for several years. I met some people years ago, and they were filmmakers working on something here in town, and we started talking, and I helped them with some stuff, and then they said, well, why don't we make a little film about you? And they did. It got put online. It actually won the documentary. We have a film festival here. It's called Westmont Film Festival, and they won. I won Best Documentary.
Wow.
Technically, they won because they did it, but since I helped with it, they let me keep the award.
Oh, that's so nice.
I said, "Really? You kind of directed it?" And they said, "Yeah, you can keep it." So I have it here, and that film is on the channel, and the it's just a short film. It didn't. They had to cut a lot so there's a lot more. So I said, well, I'm going to put that on the channel. So kind of back and forth, we created the channel as just a thing about arts, and I'd go talk to people about plays, books, art shows, video games, all sorts of things of that, movies, music. And then recently, I opened a whole separate section of it dedicated to my mother. Another section that's about COVID. I even filmed myself getting not the actual doctors doing it, but the aftermath of the booster shot. And I did the vaccines too, to use myself as an example, to say, here's what it is, here's how I'm feeling today. That's online now. I haven't put all the vaccine videos because I still need to find all of them, but I did put the booster one. That's up. There's a couple. It's like day 1, day 2, here's how I'm doing. Telling people this is what I'm going through. And I thought that would be important. And then there's going to be a whole section dedicated to my mother and her life and her artwork as she wanted. She did live long enough to see some of it and got to see her artwork on there. And we got to see some videos of it. I wish I'd done more, but it's some film of her at least.
Yeah.
That's what she wanted. And that's in itself part of our memorial. We're going to try to add more. And, but there's plenty more to do. The show, just to let people know, is not just about COVID. It was about this other stuff and promoting lesser known artists, plays, writers, etc.
Yeah.
Then the COVID section is one section of it, and then Teresa Burke Memorial. I think it says Teresa Burke Memorial or Tribute. That's another section. I'm trying to also start a thing through that to do with some people online. We don't really have a name for this yet, but we're trying to start a program of COVID survivors, both people who had COVID and people who didn't, but affected by it, where they can make stuff to raise money to help people because things are so bad for people with, for me, certainly my bills are higher now.
Yeah.
Other people are suffering. Many people have lost their jobs because of long COVID. And we thought, well, let's make greeting cards and calendars and things. And that's another thing we're doing through my site.
Yeah.
My site isn't the main thing for that. We don't have an official site, but we're just trying to do what we can for now. Yeah, that's some of the stuff that we're hoping to do.
Yeah. I want to ask you the question that I ask everybody who's on the show, and that is, what do you say to people who tell you COVID isn't real?
Oh, geez. It's like I was going over this. It's so much to it. Sorry, I'm just thinking a second here.
That's okay.
The amount of problems with people. I even wrote down a thing about the multiple reactions that I get. Such strange behavior from people, even now and throughout the situation. I think people know that you've had people saying there is no COVID, that this is a scam, they're injecting you with something. There's that group.
Yes.
I don't know too many of those people personally, but I have met them. I have a couple relatives. So you got that group. Then another group are the people saying COVID exists, but it's not so bad. Only elderly people really got sick, which I don't, I can't believe that. I actually I've been in COVID support groups where people have lost people younger than me.
Yeah.
And then I get a group that says COVID exists, but the vaccine fixed everything. COVID's over, it's gone. And also there is no such thing as long COVID. So I technically have nothing.
Wow.
Then you got a group that says COVID exists. It wasn't that bad, but meaning it wasn't that bad as far as like all the huge death toll.
Mm-hmm.
But what the stupid thing of they're altering all the medical records. So technically all those people didn't die of COVID. They died of heart attack, cancer, other illnesses, and they altered it to COVID so that they can make money off of that.
Yeah.
That one I've heard too. So all four of those groups I have heard. Either, even the people who say it exists, that's something, but then they think it's nothing. And frequently they also think the vaccine is in and out. The vaccines were so hard on me. And the booster was even worse. I was so sick. And many other people I know too, but some others, they had no problem. They just got the shot and were fine. But some of us got really, really sick from those. I think vaccines are a good thing. I think the booster's a good thing, but people need to know that. I think that kind of answers the thing. So you see how people can convince themselves of truly dangerous things.
Yeah.
But it can go the opposite way too. It can be a positive thing. But I think that that's a big part of it. Like saying, okay, we can acknowledge that there's these problems, like those four groups I mentioned. In a way, the person saying there's no COVID is as dangerous as the person saying COVID exists, but it's cured by the vaccine. You're fine. It's a long story.
Yeah. I appreciate your answer. I am learning about long COVID. And so hearing what you just said, you are really, you and the other people that have long COVID are really fighting a battle here that you're going to be at for years, I think. And it's because it's COVID just, 2 years ago. And now we have all this long COVID. And I think for a while people wanted to say, oh, no, 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 that it can't be that bad. It's not that bad, but it is that bad.
Yeah.
And everything that you're sharing illustrates just how bad it is and how much we have to learn in order to be able to be there for you and other people with long COVID.
And, they scream at me and call me a conspiracy theorist because I delayed the vaccine. Well, I delayed it because of the factors of how sick I got.
Yeah.
And I needed people there and I needed certain things set up, like, because it just knocked me out for like a week. And then the next shot was just as bad. And the booster was even worse. It lasted even longer. And yeah, it's very hard. It's the basic thing to know about long COVID, the vision, not everyone gets the same symptoms. But I noticed because of the long COVID survivors groups, many people have vision problems.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people who can't walk anymore.
Yep.
There's many people who've lost their jobs. I didn't have a job at the time, and I've gone for many jobs wouldn't take me because of how hard it was for me to do a lot of things. There was one job we went to, you had to be lifting stuff. Can't do that really.
Yeah.
I can lift a little bit depending on how I'm doing, but it changes day by day. And then we found this one place, it's very nice, and they're letting me sit down, and it's a printing place. I put things together.
Oh.
Like make books. We also what do you call it? Package things and
Yeah.
put these envelopes, put stamps on them. Not a post office. It's like just a printing place, but that's good. It's good. It's good work, and they're very understanding.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know everyone there. It's a big building, but I work in one area, and I get to know some of the people. And we take, we don't all wear masks there because they view that you didn't have to, and it actually is better for me because it's hard to breathe with a mask.
Yeah.
But we all have been vaccinated. And when I go out to most places, I'm still very careful.
Mm-hmm.
I spray my hands, I wear the mask, I do all that stuff. I wipe down everything that I get in here, mail, any groceries I wipe down.
Yeah.
To clean off. That's partially what takes so long, but it's even harder now. It's and that I would be doing whether or not I was a long hauler. We were doing that before. And I still wonder how we got it. We were so careful. I did go out a couple times in taxis, but I was very careful. And I must have brought it home. So I deal with that I got it first. So I gave it to her.
Yeah. Yeah, that survivor's guilt.
Yeah. And I don't know what I could have done different. I really don't. We were so careful.
Yeah. I do have one more question. We talked a lot about you and your long haul, and I want to end by asking you about your mom. And what's the thing that you miss the most about her?
Oh, jeez. There's so much. I don't know if I can pick one thing. I I can't pick one thing. So can I just say a couple things?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I miss I could see how happy she was with her artwork because for a while when we were homeless for a while too. And we lived in our car and I wrote a little thing once and it was about look at how far we've come because we moved around, we lived with a relative, that didn't work out, we had to move out and then moving from place to place, stayed in motels, stayed in hotels kind of places for a while. Then we got a deal on this place and came here. And I remember I still have this sheet. You kind of the short version of it is look at we were going day by day, not knowing where we were. Now, then we stayed in a motel for 5 days. Then we did this. Then we did that. Now we're here and we know we have a month. Then we knew that we had 6 months. It was kind of a look at how far we've come. And I could see she was so sad that we were down to the point of living in our car and being homeless. So I missed when I saw how happy she was with the artwork. She looked so much happier that she could do that and that she had art shows and she was putting that stuff up. Even if she didn't sell it, it was something for her. I miss sitting with her and watching stuff. There's no one now. We would watch stuff. She didn't watch all the same things with me, didn't like the same movies, but there were certain ones we would watch. And she'd watch them over and over. She thought they were so funny. Like one of her favorite things to watch. She TV shows too. She liked Modern Family. So whenever Modern Family comes on now, I think of her. Or Big Bang Theory and reruns.
Yeah.
She would. She loved the movie Scrooged and Christmas Vacation. I liked Scrooge more. I didn't like Christmas Vacation as much, but I would just sit with her, or I'd be in the room doing something, not really watching the movie, but just to hear her enjoying it. I miss that. I miss that when my episodes would get really bad, PTSD would start up. She would talk to me. Like it's a long story what she would say, but she would talk to me to help me with it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I kept it together so far. I'm so angry. You mentioned in your questions about anger. I'm so angry at the way they treated her. And I'm angry at these people for what they're doing now. That people won't help her with her memorial. Some people did, to be fair, but she would often talk about it, especially when a relative died. She would say, never do that for me. Never have a funeral like that. And she just hated the way it was done. She felt it was cruel. And she was cremated, so there's no place I can go. I can't go to a funeral. I can't go to a tombstone like I can with other relatives. That would be something, but that was her wishes.
Mm-hmm.
Like no other relative that we were close to was cremated. At least not for me. My grandparents who I loved, they are buried, so we'd go visit them at the cemetery. It was like you had that. You had something to look at. I don't have anything. I have pictures of her. I don't have the ashes. Another aunt has them. Which is probably for the best for right now. Eventually, we're going to do something with them, she said. They were thinking of going to some of mom's favorite places and putting it there. Even that, it's not the same thing. For people who were gone, to have the tombstone there, to go to the cemetery was a release.
Yes.
And not having that is really hard. There's so much to say about her. That's what I'm going to hope to do with the memorial. Not having that, I need that closure for myself.
Yeah.
I need, yeah, it's, you mentioned something about media, about telling my story. It's very good that I'm able to tell this to you. And the way some of the hospitals were very nice to her. She was transferred like 5 times.
Yeah.
This one place just treated her awful. And there's really not much we can do. I've tried to. You'd call them and they wouldn't even know she was there. And I'd say, no, Teresa Burke, transfer me to Teresa Burke's room. There's no Teresa Burke here. And I thought, oh, maybe she was transferred to another place. No, they just lost her record. Eventually I found her, but boy, was she angry when she got home. And I asked her, do you want to sue him? She said, I'm just so happy to be home. She's like, at least I'm getting better and I'm home. But I don't know what her wishes with that would have been.
Yeah.
I hear that in my head a lot, like her saying, they treated me so bad. But then she'd say nice things about the other hospitals, They, even at the end, the hospice, they were better than some, but I couldn't come in and see her like I could at the hospital. It's such a long process of that. And it's just really rough. But I'm gone a little off your question. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing her story and your story.
Yeah, it's there's so much I miss about her. I'm sure I'll think about something else. Yeah, I miss. I still do things that she would do to remember her, like putting up the Christmas tree, which was a big thing for her, and putting up her artwork in certain ways, and certain other things. It's just, and it's like, just like I've said with those discs, this is kind of a way to remember her.
Yeah.
And if I keep busy, the silent, quiet times are the worst. And of course, the holidays, but just every day not hearing her. So when I'm busy, when I'm working, when I'm talking to people, when I'm doing artwork, that's when it's better. And talking about her sometimes. Oh, she used to do this funny thing, or she would say this. And there's some people I know who can't even look at pictures of their relatives or videos. I can't. But when I touch some of her stuff to try and go through, that's when I feel really sick.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm stealing from her. Like, oh, she wouldn't want me giving away this clothes, or she wouldn't want me moving this, that kind of thing. But I can look at the pictures. Yeah, that's no problem. I miss her holding me. I can still remember being young enough when she could carry me. So I was like 2 years old because I got heavy fast and she couldn't carry me anymore. But I can remember that sensation, and that I miss. But of course, that's so long ago. But just the way that she would come over and hug me when we were talking about the episodes I was having, the PTSD, and she'd say, it's okay. That's something I miss.
Yeah.
Having that person to just say, I know it's bad, but you'll get, just that was a long time ago and such and such. Yeah. That I certainly have needed that.
Mm. Yeah, she was your person.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing so much of your story and your mom's story. I really appreciate your time today, and you just like sharing so much about how things are for you now.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I go a little off track. That's the autism. I get distracted.
It's perfectly fine. I'm really glad that we took this time and that you took so much time and thought in writing everything out and your answers to the questions and just really talking about you and your mom.
Yeah, I wish I could cover it more. I went over these questions so many times and rewrote them and rewrote my answers. And then I just wrote, I don't know how to say this fast enough.
Well, you did great. You did great. Thank you.
Well, I left out a lot, so I hope I did it justice.
You did. You did. And that's the show, everyone. This show won't ever have a members area or episodes that you have to pay to listen to, but there are expenses to hosting a podcast, and if you'd like to help, you can support this show at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. The link is in the show notes below. And if you're still listening, and thank you so much if you are, if you like this episode, please share it. Share it with your friends, share it on your social media, and once you've done that, please rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts, because that's where most of our new listeners come from. Ratings and reviews are the main way this podcast finds new listeners. So please, share the show. Until next time.